Okay, this video is going to introduce you to parallel and perpendicular lines and writing the equations of lines that are parallel and perpendicular to a given line. Okay, so first we need to know about the slopes of parallel and perpendicular. So if you have parallel lines, and I'll give you the definition of parallel just to remind you, it means that you have two lines that go on forever and ever and ever touch. What we know about parallel lines is that they have the same slope. With perpendicular lines, they are two lines that meet at a 90-degree angle. And what we know about their slopes is that they are opposite reciprocals. Okay, so this first thing, and you actually have this paper, or you should have this paper. It talks about parallel and perpendicular lines, and you're given two slopes and you're supposed to tell whether or not they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So this first set, parallel lines, if two lines are parallel, they have the exact same slope. Well, these look similar, but they have different signs, so that since they're not the exact same, they're not parallel. In order to be perpendicular, they have to have different signs, which they do on number one, but they also have to be reciprocals. And if you remember the definition of reciprocal, that means that you just flip the fraction over. So for instance, the reciprocal of 5/7 would be 7/5. This is not negative 7/5, so these would be neither. Number two, they don't have the same slope, so they're not parallel. They are opposite, and they're also reciprocals, because if you flip this fraction over, you get 9/7. So these are perpendicular. Number three has the exact same slope, so they are parallel. So those are the questions you want to ask yourself when you're doing something like this. Do they have the same slope? If yes, then they're parallel. Are they opposites? If they're not opposite and they're not the same, then they are not parallel or perpendicular. If they are opposites, then you ask yourself, are they reciprocals? And if the answer to that question is yes, then they are perpendicular. Okay, so on this one, we're given the slope and we're told to write the slope of a parallel line and the slope of a perpendicular line. So on this first one, the slope of a parallel line is just the same. So it would be 9. And the slope of the perpendicular line, we have to first change the sign since they're opposites. And the reciprocal of 9 is 1/9. And if that confuses you, I want you to think of 9 as 9/1. Because remember, any whole number can be written as a fraction over 1. So on number two, the slope of the line parallel would be 3/5. And the slope of the line perpendicular would be the opposite, so negative, and the reciprocal, so 5/3. Number three, slope of the line parallel would be 7/9. Opposite reciprocal for the perpendicular line would be negative 9/7. That's all you're doing on those. If you look at the sheet that says parallel lines, here you're writing the equation of the line that goes through the given point and is parallel to the given equation. And so I'm going to zoom in on number one. Maybe. Nope, I guess I won't because I don't want to accidentally not be able to zoom out, so I'll just leave it like this. But anyways, you're first going to identify the slope of the line given. So the slope of this given line is 3, which means the line that's parallel will also have a slope of 3, and that's all I need that line for. I'm done with it. I don't use the y-intercept of it at all. So I have my slope from it, and then I label my point x and y, and then I am going to write the equation. But first I have to find the y-intercept. So I do y equals mx plus b, plug in my y, plug in my m and my x, and then I'm going to solve for b. So I multiply and add 12. So b equals 12. So my answer on this one, I kind of ran out of room, but my answer would be y equals mx plus b, because you're writing the equation. Now, if you look at number 2, before we can do any of that, we first have to solve for y. So we're going to add x and then divide by 4. And the reason that we're doing this is because we have to know the slope of that line in order to write the line parallel to it. So the slope of this line is 1/4. The slope of the line parallel to it is also 1/4. So now I'm done with all that. And then I have my x and my y and my slope. And so I'm just going to find my y-intercept. So I have -3 equals 1/4 times 4 plus b. Multiply that 1/4 and 4 and get 1. Subtract 1 from both sides and I get b equals -4. So I have y equals mx plus b. And that's what you're doing on these. Perpendicular lines are the exact same. The only difference is that you are going to use the opposite reciprocal slope instead of the same slope. So on number 1, we have to first find the slope. So add 7x. And then divide by 2. Okay, so the slope of that line is 7/2. The slope of the line perpendicular to that would be -2/7. And so I'm done with all this. I have my x and my y and my m. I'm going to plug it all in. I'm actually going to do it down here because I ran out of room. But I have -3 equals -2/7 times 5 plus b. So multiply those together, I get -10/7. Add 10/7 to both sides, and I get -11/7 equals b. So then my equation would be y equals -2/7x minus 11/7. And that's all you're doing. So you have to find your slope of the given line, and then find the slope of the line parallel or perpendicular to it, depending on what it asks. And then plug in your m, your x, and your y, and find your b, and then write your equation, and that's it.